Hey boys and girls, it's story time again, and this time it's from me being out at sea, literally, in Bali. This was a few months back. I fancied this swim in the sea. It was a beautiful evening. The sun was starting to come down. I think it was 3ish, and I'd spent a few days in Bali by that time, and I'd been going to the beach every day, and I just had been going to the shore and just, you know, one does on the shore, just bathe yourself in the seawater near the shore. But at this point I was like, okay, we gotta go further away from the shore. Let's just try out what's in store on the other side. And so we decided to just swim as far as we possibly could until the point of starting to feel tired, and at that point we were supposed to turn back. And we expected that it would probably be around the sunset time. That's when I would start flagging, and that's when I turned back. And yeah, that's what I did, and that's when it gets interesting. But let me just talk about the first part of this, right? So I'm out at sea, and it was mesmerizing. The shimmering waves, the shimmering sun on the waves themselves. It was the texture of the water. It was so gorgeous. At some points it looked like silky smooth. There's this area around you, because of the water dynamics. There's this area around you which seems silky smooth, and all the area around this area, it seems very choppy, turbulent. And yeah, the water dynamics made for such a beautiful scene. I unfortunately didn't bump into any animal life, which was a pity because I was hoping for that, but it's also a blessing, I guess. It was, and I was following the sun, like the sun was right in front of me. I was following the line from me to the sun, and yeah, I had an epiphany, a metaphor that I think would be the perfect metaphor for my life. There's this line from you to the sun. Now, my name literally means the sun in the language, this language that I used to speak, still do. And yeah, I've always been fascinated with the sun. That's why I studied astrophysics, and hence my obsession with solar energy, capturing that, harnessing that. And I've got an obsession with stars and the sun in particular. And yeah, I was looking at the star being the source of light, and this actually speaks to the reason why my father named me after the sun, and my name literally means the sun. It's because he was hoping for me to become a fount of knowledge. Yeah, it is such a nice sentiment, isn't it? And yeah, the illuminator, the creator of light, because the metaphor for knowledge is light, right? So illuminating things is imparting knowledge, is creating knowledge, it's discovering things. So that was the rationale behind giving me the name, the sun, giving me a name which literally means the sun. And actually looking at it now. And yeah, so the metaphor that I came upon, that I had in the moment, was that my life is a pursuit of, so the sun is the ideal self, right? The sun is perfect, it's faultless, it's flawless, it's brilliant in its glory. And that's who you want to become, right? Become perfect, complete, brilliant, a source of knowledge, of light, of beauty, of everything that is good and great. And life is a journey of getting there. But there will be moments, and there will be loads of those moments, where circumstances and situations that you find yourselves in would make it difficult for you to have a direct line of sight to the ideal self. You will forget who you are. You'll forget who you're supposed to be. You'll forget your deeper why, your deepest why. You'll forget your purpose. You'll forget the reason why you want to push yourself as hard as you want to. You'll forget the reason why you breathe. You'll forget the reason why you exist. And in those moments, you've got to dig deep. But those moments will fade away, and life is about getting back to that line of sight and maintaining that and using that and fueling that line of sight to your greatest self, to your most perfect self. Now, you're never going to become perfectly perfect. It's an impossibility. But the best that you can hope for is the best that you can get, and it's the best that you should hope for and work for is getting ever close to that perfection, which is how I think of my existence, right? I'm never going to be perfect, but there's nothing more alluring to me, there's nothing more captivating to me, there's nothing more, there's nothing that has a greater gravitational force, than becoming the greatest person I can be. And this is not evidenced just by external results, it comes from within, the way you feel about yourself. And this is not self-delusion, right? Because I used to, when I was a kid, I used to believe that. I used to want to live in a bubble of my own making where I would just pursue knowledge for the sake of it. I didn't really care about impact, I didn't really care about changing the world, I didn't really care about making the world a better place. All I cared about was just reading, just consuming knowledge and with a passion and maybe adding to the sum total of the world's knowledge bank, but not moving the needle in any substantial way. But that has changed. That particular thing has changed radically in the last, say, 10 years. I do wanna, on the greater stage, I do see humans. If we are the only species, the only intelligent species in the universe, it's incumbent upon us. It's our greatest responsibility to spread the flame of consciousness to the far-flung corners of the cosmos, because the universe has no meaning, the universe has no beauty. The universe is a cold place without life, without consciousness, without something that can observe, something that can impart meaning, impart beauty to it. So that has become my mission, one of my core missions in life. And okay, so that was a big digression. It was not quite the digression. I think it speaks to that metaphor, and the realization I had while I was in the water. So by that time I'd probably spent a couple of hours in the water. I was very far away from the shore. I couldn't see anything, so it's just me with my metaphors, with my thoughts about who I am at this moment in time, who do I want to be, unencumbered by the shoulds and the supposeds and the what ifs and the whatnots and the rest of it, right? So it's just you and the purest essence of who you want to be in that moment. And so that metaphor became the central metaphor for my life since then. And so that was about the metaphor. A few other interesting things happened in the water. So that was the first time. This was around a few days in Bali. I didn't know that I mentioned that. This was a few days in Bali, and up until that I'd just been going to the sea, just enjoying the beach. But at this point in time I was like, okay, we gotta do something. We gotta go as far away from the shore as possible. We gotta do something exhilarating. And what's the most exhilarating thing I could think of in that moment? That was to go as far away from the shore as possible and only return back once you start feeling really tired, once you start flagging. And that's what I decided to do. So at that point in time, I'd been in the water these are tropical waters, by the way, so very comfortable to stay in for the longest time. So at that point, I'd probably been a couple of hours in the water, and to see the shimmering waves, the shimmering sun on the rails, and you bobbing up and down because the waves are passing you by, the water dynamics, the water around you, a few meters around you in this radius, being so smooth, so buttery smooth, and the region around that being choppy and turbulent. The water dynamics were an absolute joy to behold. It's just seeing physics in the real world. I mean, this sounds a bit silly because you see physics all the time, but seeing those kinds of things in the real world, it's just got this magic, this charm to me, because I was also obsessed with wave physics. I tried to build devices to capture wave energy, and I mean, anything to do with physics is just be captivating to me. But yeah, so I was in the water and was looking at Bali fading away from my view. And then the sun started to go down, and I still remember that. I remember that vividly. It was such a beautiful sight. I couldn't see anything behind me. It was just me surrounded by water in all directions, I think so. It was just me, and yeah, the sun setting down, the purplish sky, the orange sky. Oh gosh, it was such a joy to behold. Yeah, it's so interesting that we find sunsets, which are really, when you boil it down, sunsets are nothing but the sun setting down, right? There's nothing inherently special about anything in life, I get that. But it would just seem that sunsets would seem mundane, but they're anything but, right? You can watch a sunset every day of your life and never get bored. I'd love to understand the deeper reasons behind that. Because I was there in Bali, in London, this is gonna sound crazy, but in London, the past 4 years, I hadn't seen a single sunset. Well, I probably would have seen a few, but hardly any. Because of clouds, because of the skyscrapers, and yeah, you're gonna find it difficult to see sunsets in London. So these are my first sunsets in a long time, and yeah, every single day they would just fill me with such joy, such a sense of beauty, such a sense of awe, which is again really interesting, right? That a sunset would fill you with awe. It's not even about the location, because I was in Kuta, which is not even that special a place in Bali. I mean, Kuta is literally the worst of all places in Bali, and the reason for that is, I don't know if I should say this or not on camera. Okay, you know what, I'm just gonna say it. So Kuta's got these shops which sell these souvenirs which are phallic objects and they are I don't know what you call these things, you're supposed to put them on your doors. And these were the rudest words I've seen in my life. Jesus, I cannot say those words ever. Like, not just in front of the camera, but I wouldn't even want to say those words ever. But really, really crude and rude stuff. And yeah, which was really jarring to witness, because Bali is known as the island of gods. It's supposed to be a very spiritual place, and people go there, people from the US and Europe, especially they go there to go on a journey of spiritual awakening. To see that in the first place I stayed at was quite jarring. It was quite shocking. And yeah, but that was that, right? Anyways, what was I talking about? Where was I? Wait a second, where was I? Yeah, so at that point I was probably a couple of hours away from the shore. The sun was setting, and it was just, it was time to start turning back. I wasn't tired, hardly at all, maybe. But yeah, the sun had set, and I wasn't really too keen to stay in the water after the sunset, because I hadn't done that before open sea swimming. It was something I probably would have wanted to do for the longest time, but never got the opportunity. And the first time I did it, I just got addicted. I wouldn't say addicted to it, but I just caught the bug, and that's something I want to do so frequently in the future. Being that very state, it's just like the state of you being on top of a mountain with no one else in the vicinity, and it's just you and the elements, right? There's something very appealing to me about being in that state, just you and the elements, just you and your thoughts in the world. And being in the sea, literally, not just in a boat, but literally being in the sea with nothing to hold up. Like, there were some extreme scenarios that I was imagining, right? These are things that never happened to me, but the human body is a very complex organism. What's that? And at any point in time, something could happen, right? Where maybe you lose the functioning of your legs, maybe you become unconscious for a bit, right? That was to happen in the sea, you're dead. Yeah. I don't think I've read about those kinds of things happening, but the jellyfish thing, for God's sake, right? That can happen anytime in the sea. And tropical waters are notorious for having all kinds of life. And some of that life is not human friendly. Yeah. So it was, but I don't think there were a few things that I saw, there were a few fishes maybe, but I had the realization, I had the realization up in the mountains, up in the forest, that you killed so much life. I mean, that was one of the takeaways from that sea, from that open sea swim, that we killed so much of life, that even in places where you'd expect to see a lot of life, there's hardly any left. And that was, I don't want to talk about that in this moment, but that was crushing. Because I love life, and not just human life, I love the very idea of life. And okay, I don't think I should be talking about this because it's a difficult subject to talk about. Anyways, so it was time to start turning back, and that's when the adventure started. Because up until now it'd been pretty plain and simple, right? You just swim out to the sea, and it's not, I mean, it's almost as if, not almost, if you remove the surroundings, it would be as if you're swimming in the pool. Well, not quite, because you're struggling with the waves. Actually, they were interesting, right? Because every time that the waves are coming at you, and they're coming at you every few seconds, right? You've got to prop yourself up for bracing them, because if you don't, they're gonna hit you in the face, and that's not a pleasant sensation. Also, they might get the seawater might get in your eyes and your mouth, which again is not pleasant. So you gotta brace yourself every few seconds. So you can't get complete. I mean, after a certain point in time, you can still completely get lost in thoughts, but it'll still be it'll take a while to get there, because you still have to focus on a few things around you. And while you're doing that, one of the things I found a newfound appreciation for my body. Now, I love my body as it is, as fat as I am, but oh God, oh Jesus. It wasn't that funny. I love my body as it is, but you don't really appreciate the magnificence of it, the majesty of it, the power of it, the beauty of it, unless you actually put yourself in a situation where you have to, where you have to rely on it, right? So be it climbing a mountain, or be it in the sea, right? Because in the sea, it's your body which is literally keeping you from drowning, and which is keeping you moving. And so there were these moments where I went into a meditative state, so I would just feel my body in the water, and these are again tropical waters, right? So it was the sensations of meditating in the water. They were unlike anything I've ever experienced, and I definitely recommend that. That was oh so beautiful, oh so powerful, oh so life affirming. So that was wonderful. Then it was time to start turning back, and that's, as I said, that's when the adventure started, because it felt impossible. It felt like I was being pushed in the opposite direction, which is away from the shore. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how hard I swam, I wouldn't move forwards. Not only that, I felt like I was going backwards. And the thing about the open sea is that you don't really have any way to calibrate whether you're making progress. When you're closer to the shore, you can use the shore as an indicator about every few seconds, every few moments, you can look around you, and if you're moving in a certain direction, a certain orientation, you would know that you're making good progress in the direction you want to make, right? But when it's dark, and by this point it started turning dark because the sun had gone down, I had been a few, I probably turned back as soon as the sun went down, or maybe I might have waited a few more minutes, but it turned dark, and by this point, and I was panicking bad, because I mean, you imagine the situation, right? So it's you far away from the shore, and you haven't put yourself in these kinds of situations, so it's all about desensitizing yourself to different kinds of situations, right? Because what's stressful to someone, to person A, might not be stressful to someone else, right? And it might not inherently be stressful. So there are things which are inherently stressful, and there are things which are stressful because of your state of mind, because you haven't really exposed yourself to these kinds of difficulties. So to give an example, right? Maybe, I mean, this is a very simple example, but maybe climbing up a mountain with a very shallow incline might seem stressful to someone else, but that might seem like a literal walk in the park for someone who's been doing that, doing real rock climbing, vertical space rock climbing for the longest time. So stress is, obviously, I mean, I'm not saying anything new, but stress is very relative, so stress is very contextual, and stress is something which you can mold in your life, and the more you expose yourself to such, and that's why one of my mantras in life, one of my key beliefs is that I want to create artificial stress in my life, artificial difficulties in my life, so that when the inevitable difficulties come into my life, I am much better equipped to deal with them. And that's why I want to run marathons, ultra marathons. That's why I want to push myself intellectually. That's why I want to push myself spiritually. That's why I want to do the difficult things in life. Because one, they're just fun to do, right? Because finding your limits and working at the highest limits, highest end of your limits is just such a life-affirming thing to do. And secondly, it prepares you to deal with the inevitable difficulties that life's going to bring. And that is quite underrated, right? Having that preparedness, mental preparedness, physical preparedness, spiritual preparedness, that is such a powerful thing to have in your corner when you're going to be faced with the challenges of life. So yeah, so because I hadn't really done this, I wasn't really equipped to deal with this in a calm manner. Now, I'm still a pretty calm person, I'd say. So I wasn't outright panicking. There were these few initial minutes where I was like, okay, what the hell am I done for? But after that initial panic, I think I would be right in calling that panic. I don't feel panic, hardly. I don't think that I would be able to count the amount of times I felt real panic, real dread in my life on one hand. Probably in one finger. That is 1, 2, 3, probably. So yeah, after those few minutes subsided, after that initial panic subsided, I was like, okay, problem solving mode on. What are we going to do? If you have to stay in the water for the entire night, you need to start conserving energy. And in the morning, someone's bound to find us, right? Because this is Bali, this is a very popular touristy area, and I saw a lot of boats in the area, so fishing boats, fishing vessels. So someone's bound to come my way, and that's why that's why I told myself. But at the same time, I was still trying to get out of this. So I think what I experienced there was I don't know the term for this. I have experienced these undercurrents in the water which move you, push you, and take you in a certain direction, right? And this undercurrent, it felt like it was taking me away from the shore. So there's a term for it. I read about this, and these are found in locations which have got certain kinds of underwater topography. So I think that must have been that kind of a place. There's a second theory. So this is the accepted theory, but there's a second thing that could have happened. You know, because you're so far away from the ocean, from the shore, right? So you're not really able to, the lights are so far away and everything's just so far away, right? So you won't be able to make sense of, even if you were making progress every few seconds, you wouldn't be able to see that, you wouldn't be able to notice that. And because the waves, the waves are moving with you. Yeah, because the waves are moving with you, that adds to that feeling of you're not making any progress. And when you feel like you're not making any progress, you start feeling as if you're actually going in the opposite direction. There's a tiny chance that might have happened because I wasn't, again, psychologically equipped to deal with it. But the undercurrents, I think, is the more legitimate theory of what happened there. So I just felt stuck. I could not move. I could not make any progress. But I told myself that, okay, we gotta leave it all out there, right? Because we can't really stay in this ocean for 8 hours. It was gonna be like, it wouldn't have been 8 hours. Actually, it would have been more, because this was like 7:30. So it would have been like 5:30 is the sunrise time, so it would have been like 10 hours, right? And I hadn't really swam in a long time. I think this was my first swim in ages, in like 3 years. So it was one time I swam in the Brighton Sea, but it was so cold I didn't really swim for more than a few minutes. So it was my first real swim in a long time, right? I wasn't feeling great about it, about the prospects of me staying, treading water for 8 hours. That just seemed like a very difficult thing to do. So I had to try to find a way to get to the shore. And the shore was, the lights were up, by the way, this was such a beautiful scene. It was dark, the sun had set behind me, and Bali's coast, Bali shore was, and the beach with the restaurants, the Pizza Hut. I couldn't see the Pizza Hut, but I knew there was a Pizza Hut. That's what got me going. I'll get Pizza Hut, I'm gonna come for you, I'm gonna get a pizza from, yeah, I can't die without eating a pizza from Pizza Hut in Bali. That was amazing. Yeah, there were these lights, these shimmering lights. It was gorgeous scene, and yeah, the very meditative sound of the waves passing me by, and the wind rustling by and whistling by. Yeah, it was such a beautiful, it was in its own way such a charming experience. But I decided, okay, you know what, we gotta give it our best shot. So at that point I put on my Michael Phelps mode, and then I swim like I would never swam. Forget about swimming like I would never swam. I didn't think I would push myself physically the way I did in a short span of time, because most of my physical achievements, if I can call them that, have been endurance events. So over 10 hours, over 12 hours. But this was me pushing myself off this undercurrent, trying to get off this undercurrent, and that required me to swim with the kind of intensity that I've never done a physical thing with, I think, because this would require that, right? Because when you're stuck in an undercurrent, when you're stuck in this current, you've gotta find those reserves of all the energy and all the will to live that you've got, and channel that towards one goal and one goal only, which is to survive, right? To find a way to survive. So that's what I did, and I got out of it, and I felt so great. In a few minutes I felt like I'd made real progress, and at that point it felt like, okay, you know what, with every stroke I am actually moving forward. So that felt, the relief I felt in that moment was one of the greatest moments of relief I've felt in my entire life. And yeah, slowly and slowly I started finding it to the shore, to the beach, and I just fall down on the beach because I was tired to my bone. And yeah, it felt so great. I remember that moment, it was dark, yeah, there were a few people around who were gawking at me like, where the hell did this guy come from? But they didn't know that I'd just come from hell. Yeah, so that was the first time, and I loved that experience so much. And as I said, there was this tiny chance, maybe it was what had happened. There was this chance that I wasn't current. It was just my mind playing tricks on me. So if that was the case, then I was obviously going to do this again. I did do it, I think 3 more times while I was in Bali, and it was so much fun. The next 3 times I did it, I didn't feel that. Maybe the second time I didn't feel it initially, but yeah, maybe it speaks to the fact that it was purely psychological, because when you're far from the ocean, from the shore, you feel less, you feel that you're not making any progress. So I think that's what it is. And I did it 3 more times, and it was so much fun. It was just gosh, being in that state is such a moving experience, because you're relying on your body to keep you afloat, to keep you alive. And yeah, it was amazing. It was magical. Yeah, I was gonna do a review of my Bali trip, but I don't think I'm gonna do that because I've got other things to talk about, more pressing matters. But what I'm gonna do is quickly talk about the second time I actually did this, but the sunset was one of the most mesmerizing sunsets I've seen in my life. And there's this moment where the sun, there was a gap in the clouds, and the sun was visible through that, and there was a boat which passed in front of me, so the boat was between me and the sun. And the silhouette of that boat between the sun, with the sun behind it, it created such a magical image in my mind, and that got me thinking about the fact that, you know, with cameras we can capture these snapshots. It would be so amazing to actually capture these snapshots, like, you know, just mentally saying to yourself that this is a moment that I want to capture forever. Like, remove the unnecessary stuff that you've got stored brain, but do remember this moment, this image, or this video, this sound, this smell, this sensation. That would be such an amazing thing, right? Just clicking something in your brain, telling your brain that, okay, remember this for your life, right? Because life is a series of these kinds of things, right? An accumulation of these, a chain of these kinds of things. Most of the things that happen in life, it's not those exactly. The Pareto law applies equally well to life, right? It's the 10% of things, or 20% of things, or 5% of things for some people that make up the bulk of life in terms of your perception of it, your image of yourself, your image of life, about how happy you feel about life, right? And yeah, imagine being able to, and with Neuralink, we're actually very close to being able to do that, right? Because what happens here, because what happens is, well, we know that some people got photographic memories and they remember things, and maybe they also remember smells and sensations and sequence of events, so that would be videos, in a perfect way that would they be able to recreate that? Or would their brain still confabulate certain things? Would their brain still hallucinate certain things? Maybe, we don't know. That would be an interesting thing to study. But anyways, we do remember a lot of these things, even though we don't say to our mind to remember that. And what we do know is that when there are strong emotions attached to something, we tend to remember it more powerfully and more vividly and for a longer span of time, right? So there must be some mechanism in the brain which does something when you're feeling a strong emotions, and that attaches that to memories, right? So the way I think about memories is that memories would be the things themselves, so it could be the image, and then there would be a certain thing attached to that in terms of the states or the feelings. So for example, if I were to tell you to think about your best friend, that would also release some emotions, some states. Or if I were to ask you to remember the best times you had with your partner, that would release certain states of certain feelings and emotions, right? So the way things would be stored in our mind would be that it would be the thing itself, and then there would be some encoding of states and emotions. And with Neuralink, if we can stimulate our brains to release certain emotions when we ask it to, when we are doing something that might not necessarily have a strong emotional response, but we still want to remember it for the longest time, then we can actually do it. So that's a very intriguing possibility that is on the horizon. So that's going to be fun. That's going to be, and Neuralink I'm going to talk about that in an episode. Neuralink is going to be a game changer. I'm so excited to see that. But this is not about Neuralink. This is about the trip. That sunset was so magical. It was the thing about sunsets. I don't know what it is. There was this discussion, I think it was a debate that I watched a long time ago. It was Richard Dawkins, and he was discussing this with someone else, and the theme of the discussion was that religious people, they tend to ask that, if you explain everything, then that you remove the beauty, the magic of it. The magic of it is not even the right way to describe it, right? Because when you use the word magic, the connotation is that there's something that we don't understand. But if we understand everything perfectly, would it still be magical? So that was the argument made by the people on the religious side. And Richard Dawkins said that, I understand how plants grow, I understand why roses are red, why they have the smell that they do. I understand why I feel the love I do for my partner, for my friends, for my family. I know why the sunset, I don't think we mentioned the sunset, but let's just go with that. I know why the sunset feels so beautiful to witness. I know why it gives us all the good feelings. I know why the stars, the shimmering stars in the sky, they look also captivating. I know why lawmaking feels so good. I know why eating sugary stuff feels so good. Those sort of things, right? And yeah, I can still enjoy them. So that was an interesting discussion. And there's two schools of thought, right? Some people say that if you explain something, it's like a joke, right? If you dissect a joke too much, the joke has lost its power. And similarly with the phenomena, with something in the real world, if you explain it too much, but I don't take that and accept that at all, because for me, one of my core values is to understand everything, understand things deeply, right? And it's also to cherish, it's also to appreciate, it's also to admire, it's also to bathe in the beauty of things, despite understanding, not despite, but because I understand them. Because understanding doesn't take away from it, it actually adds more to it, right? Because when you are admiring a flower in isolation without knowing the science behind the smells, you're just admiring the physical sensation, right? But when you look at the whole picture, then you can admire the intricacies of it. You can admire the fact that it's a process of millions of years of evolution. The reason that these plants have smells is to attract insects, and it's this dance of nature, it's this dance that nature's created for it. And that just adds to the magic. Again, magic is not the right word, but that just adds to it. So yeah, that would be my 2 pence on it. I think that's it for this one. Yeah. After that, I went to this thing. I was like, okay, you know what? I need to be back in the water. But before I go back in the water, I need something easier. So I went to a water park, which is right in front of my hotel. And that was an amazing experience. Yeah, water parks are so much fun. So after going to the water park, I went back to the ocean again, equipped for the second time around. And the second time around was the best time I've had in the sea. It was genuinely, even as I remember it, these months down the line, I can still feel the beauty of it, the power of being in the sea, and the effect that it has on your state. It was a joy to behold. It was a joy to behold. Would definitely recommend that. That's it from my side today. We're gonna catch soon. Yeah, that's it. Bye bye.